All right, everybody, welcome, welcome. It's 12 o'clock, and so we're going to go ahead and start. Um, we have with us today our chapbook author extraordinaire, Zaynab Iliyasu Bobi, who is a Nigerian Hausa author. In addition to being a poet, an artist, and a scientist, Zaynab is also a poetry reader for Chestnut. She is the author of Cadaver of Red Roses and won the 2023 Daracot Edie Chapbook Prize. Uncensored Snapshots, the reason we're here today, is about bearing witness to the atrocities committed in northern Nigeria, fueled by the people's hospitality and patience, which is often mistaken for weakness, as well as the blindness of the government. One fun fact about the chap is that she wrote 10 of the poems in one sitting. And it was it was the most like, traumatic writing experiences she's ever had. Lastly, she considers her writing world to be dynamic and mysterious even to herself. I love that line. And the chapbook Uncensored Snapshots, the link to find it on for purchase is in the chat as well. And we have with us also our co-presenter, Abubakar Sadiq, who is the author of Leaked Footages from University of Nebraska Press in 2024, which won the 2023 Sillerman First Book Prize for African Poetry. He's the winner of the 2022 Ignite Award for Best Speculative Poetry. And there is more, and the chat has eaten it up. Let me read up the rest here. Um, he's gotten the Paul and Peterson Award for Poetry 2024, Margaret Gibson Poet Laureate Poetry Award 2023, and a finalist for the Evaristo Prize for African Poetry 2023. His work is nominated for the SFPA Riesling Award, Pushcart Prize, Best New Poets, and he's published in Boston Review, Poetry Ireland Review, The Fiddlehead, Mizna, Faya, Uncanny Magazine, Augur Magazine, Fantasy Magazine, and elsewhere. So we have a lot of talent here in this room, and I'm going to now pass over the mic to Zainab and Abubakar and just and yeah, enjoy. I'm looking forward to this lovely opportunity to talk to you all or to hear from you all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samira.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Samira, for that wonderful introduction. And I want to begin by saying huge congratulations to Zainab on the publication of her second chapbook, which is an amazing feat. I know she knows just how proud, I am of her journey as a writer and as a person, and to see her achieve this to me, but to everyone who comes from the United States. So yeah, know that we're rooting for you and looking forward to celebrate you more, which is the reason why I'm here and why everyone present in this session is here as well to celebrate your incredible achievements and what you have done. So to start things up, I know we're like on a time crunch, and I think we have just 45 minutes for our conversation, right? So to usher us into the conversation properly, I'm wondering if you would honor us with a reading of a poem, any from the chat book, just to get things started. I don't know. I feel like it's a tradition for me to begin literary conversations with the reading. And since you're who we are celebrating today, it's best you do us the honor. So yeah, please, any poem to get things started.
Okay. Thank you, Sadiq. And yeah, I'm going to start with one of the poems you mentioned earlier, How to Knot a Hausa Tongue. If any of you have the
Mm,
book there, you can just open page 7. How to Knot a
mm,
Hausa Tongue. Yeah, thank you. Standing on the podium, preferring to give a speech on how to fasten my tongue, I make my sea hold its reflection on every P word that fall out of my mouth to stop me from pronouncing words like pretty, fearful, bright, pain wrongly. And on the tip where my tongue is a measure of how much English it can hold without breaking, silently tied to fall a bridge. between my voice and the mic. I end the speech saying, please try to perfect your pronunciation. Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful reading. It's one of my favorite poems, in the collection because of what it does with language and the capacity of language and not just language, the human tongue. I think you were saying earlier, you commented earlier about how the poem sort of signals, well, how elastic, the tongue can be. And I know some weeks ago, or a week ago, we had a conversation over the phone where you were telling me how you had discovered the length your tongue can go. Your tongue can go in a sort of like shape shifting in a way that you
Mhm.
hadn't thought it was capable of. And I feel like
Yeah.
this poem is a nod to that, right? But then today we're discussing poetry of witness, and I would love us to begin with discussing what the role of the poet is, in the act of witnessing, in the poetry of witness, and also not just the poet, right? Not just the poet, because Caroline Forche, of course, who is credited, with the popularizing of this subgenre of poetry of witness, and has said in the past about the right thing to do, and not just a witnessing that is done by the writer, but also the reader is also involved, right, in the act of witnessing, and they are also
Mhm.
participating by offering their attention to what is being written, on the page. So I I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know what it is that you think is the role of the poet, that's the writer, and the poetry of witness, and the role of the reader, with with a focus on your writing in particular.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for that question, Sadiq. I'm glad that you mentioned Caroline Fouché because she I was introduced to, or let me say, I got to understand what poetry of witness is after watching one of her interview. Sorry, Emmanuel, can you mute yourself, please? Yeah. Okay, so I get to be introduced to poetry of witness after watching her interview on YouTube. That's titled Poetry of Witness, and then I realized that at that point that I have been writing. This was something that I've been writing for a long time, and even though to myself I know that it does have a name. It should have a name because I know it was quite different from what I read from other people. Because the first I can remember the first poem I wrote. It was about it was a poem written about something that I have witnessed. So I think my introduction to poetry was I started as a poet of witness. So and I'm glad that I get to have two chapbooks that all focuses on that. So what is a role of a poet as a witness and also as of the readers as well? Yeah. So I think poets do have um, a very big role to play as witness, even especially looking at the fact that at what is currently happening in the world. Um, we need poets to assess those things, to visualize them in languages that are going to be understandable and also more accessible to the people, because um, for, I would say that poets are kind of the eye of the world. I love thinking um like that because if poets have been silenced, have been asked not to write about what they have witnessed, or maybe as a second witness, then definitely there's going to be a blind world. and one would want to be in a blind world. So I think the role of poet as witness is to give a vision, a sight to the world entirely, and also to act as a resources in order to document these events that is happening so that the coming generations are not just going to be left with nothing, you know. So for the reader, I think the role of the reader is to read those things and to make sure that it's been archived. Those writings are being archived, like what Caroline Fouché did with the poetry of witness, the book, the anthology of poetry of witness that she released from 150 to 2001. Yes, it archived all these poets who had gone through several events. They have lived through several events, both as a result of injustice, maybe war, or maybe silencing from the government. So yes, like what she did, I think that should be also the role of the readers to make sure that those works are being archived. Yeah.
You know, I love what you said about how after watching um an interview of Caroline Forshey, you discovered that you went back and discovered that what you've been writing is actually poetry of witness. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's very true because oftentimes when I read poem, I feel like every poem is a poetry of witness because something is being seen. You write in response to something, you know, and when you're writing in response to anything at all, you are in a way making that thing visible, and giving visibility to anything is an act of seeing. An act of seeing is also what of witnessing, right? But then poetry of witnessing does more than saying. It does more than saying. It does more than saying. Um, that happened. It does more than saying, I see you. And in the ways that poetry of witness does more than saying, I see you, is saying, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge your existence. I
Mhm.
acknowledge your suffering. I acknowledge that this is what you're experiencing right now. It doesn't have to always, with poetry of witness, it doesn't always have to be something traumatic, something bad. Um, which is what I think the poem you read earlier, that's what it
Mm-hmm.
does. It's not
Yeah.
it is not bent on any traumatic event, anything. It's just showing us to see language in a different light, you know. So we're seeing the accents, the Hausa accents and writing in
Mm-hmm.
a way that we may not have done so if we hadn't drawn our attention to that specific element of of the tongue. And that is one of the things I feel I'm very like impressed by when it comes to writing poetry of witness. And then you go back to reading some of your favorite poets, and then you realize that even if they did not openly identify as poets of
Mm-hmm.
witness, they are
Mm-hmm.
actually poets of witness. Um, I don't think Ocean Vuong or Natal Diaz, Claudia Rankin, identify as poets of witness, right? But then you read their poems and you see that they're
Mm-hmm.
doing the works of archiving, of
Mm-hmm.
documenting, the lives of themselves or their people, the things that are going on in the world. And another person that does this greatly is what's his name again?
Oh.
Um the author of Death Republic.
Oh, Ilya Kamishka. Yeah, it's Ilya Kamishka.
Yeah, when I think of poets of witness, he's one of like the prominent people that I feel like are doing that, currently. He's always writing in response, to
Yeah.
ongoing events, catastrophes in the world, or tragic events that are happening in the world. And there's also Nur Hindi, I think she's
Mm-hmm.
just made her mark in being a poet of witness, even if she doesn't openly, identify, as a poet
Mm-hmm.
of witness. So I feel like most poets are poets of witness, right? Even if they do not identify as that. So that realization that you came to, that's what I feel like happened, at that time. So um
Yeah.
now archiving, documenting, it takes different forms, it takes different forms. And I feel like this chapbook is exemplary um, product of what could happen when we will learn to archive, our lives and the events that are shaping history as it is happening, in
Mm-hmm.
different ways, right? In different ways. And I was, of course, amongst many other things, many shiny things in the chapel. One of the things I was most impressed by is how you were able to bring in different forms, into the writing, the innovative ones especially. I'm looking at a broken constellation. I'm like, what? How? You know, it's very impressive because it's not just about how it appears on the page. It is what it brings to your mind, what it reminds you of, right? A broken constellation,
Mm-hmm.
the title is being complemented by the form, on the page. So, and then there's also the matter of daily bread, which is, oh my goodness,
Mm-hmm.
gives me goosebumps, anytime I read it. So I want to know what your like approach was in like engaging with form and innovation, um, you know, in this chapbook in particular, and how do you as a poet use form now to reflect fragmentation? Because
Okay. I think there's a network.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
lost him for a minute. He'll come right back, I'm sure. Just a connection issue, I think.
Yeah. Okay. But before he does, I think I'll just try to answer some of the question he asked from the beginning about identification. Labeling, it's something that I don't really engage in. I don't really like the idea of labeling yourself also. But even though a lot of poets who write poetry of witness, I don't think it's important to describe yourself or label yourself as a poet of witness. It's just your responsibility to know that it is important for you to be a poet of witness without saying that you're a poet of witness. That means by making your work be about witnesses, you know. And I'm glad that a lot of poets, especially not even the contemporary poets, even the classical poets, they were all poets of witness, which is really exciting and also traumatizing, looking at what they have written about. But um so yeah, that's about labeling and also identification as a point of witness. And I don't think Caroline Fouché actually identified herself as a point of witness. She only coined the set name, the a point of witness. It's not bad. Yeah.
He's
But
not
I'm
back.
gonna yeah, it's not bad.
No.
But all right. Earlier I mentioned that I watched an interview of Caroline Fouché about poetry of witness. And then alongside her there was Fadi Joda, there was Claudia Seria, and others. So after watching the interview, I was left with so many questions and I would like mention a few here. I was like asking because they made me understood that the whole concept of poetry of witness is to combat forgetting. It's like just to say that poetry of witness is a poetry against forgetting, which is important in the society and also in the world entirely. And and I start asking myself, what is like I know forgetting is expensive and we can't really afford it. So how do we stop it from happening? So and then the second one was that um looking at how everything is politicized, and I'm saying, like, I was asking myself, that means there will definitely be a lack of questioning. If things are being politicized, there'll be that lack of questioning. So a lack of questioning and would also definitely lead to a downfall of the nation. We have watched a lot of countries like become what they never thought they would be. Yeah, he's back. Um, yes, there would be over the time because of political rot. Yeah, yes, political rot. Yeah, yeah, political rot. And then welcome back, Sadiq.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry,
Yes, we can.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, yes,
We
we
can hear
can hear
you.
you.
You're great.
I don't have audio, cannot hear anything.
Okay, you can't hear us, but yeah, we
Oh,
can hear. It might be the
oh,
headphones. Sometimes mine does that.
okay,
Um,
yes. Let me see.
Hold on. Let me exit and
Sure. And Zainab, I really like what you were
join
saying
again.
about this
Hopefully it
idea of
works.
the aim
I had a
being a,
technical.
Okay.
it's okay, about this idea of this, the aim of the poetry is to
How do I
combat
even use
forgetting.
this thing?
I find that fascinating.
Yes.
Hold on.
And I know, Elia, yes, I am a scientist, but I do forget that a lot of times. So during my finals, I specialized in immunology, which is quietly the study of the immune system. And there I get to learn a lot of things about the immune system and how they actually keep the body safe. Which, yeah, we should thank you. I'm thankful for that. And so there's this concept of memory in the immune system where where the concept of vaccination came in. And then the concept is that when when a disease like infects you, when a virus infects you, it can't affect you again because your body have already built a resistance against that virus because by having a memory of that virus. So immediately it combats that virus. It's going to like store everything about that virus and all the mechanisms it takes to combat that virus is going to store it. So immediately it's get attacked by that virus again, it's going to combat the virus. So it's like the memory is there sealed. And I was like, okay, so this is something that the world should want to have. This is something not that the leaders shouldn't deprive us from having because we need memory in our um to understand ourselves now. We need memory. So yeah, Kabaka is not back again. I don't want to answer the other
Yeah,
question without him here. You're back?
yeah, I think I am.
Okay.
So
You're back.
I had a technical glitch and then I had to change devices. Uh, but can everybody hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So your
So
question
I think that
about,
was
yeah,
form
your question
and
about form.
innovation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I
I
got
was
that.
saying, okay, I wasn't even done asking the question, but then I
Oh,
was going to say, yeah, how do you as a poet, you know, in terms of with this chapbook in mind, you know, in particular, how do you use form with those poems I mentioned earlier, with them as a reference point? How do you use those forms to reflect fragmentation, you know, disruption or censorship that we see in the media or the places that have been exposed to violence, you know, are familiar with, you know, the fragmentation in the livelihood, day-to-day lives of the people who inhabit these communities that have been, you know, disrupted or made, torn apart. Families have been torn apart. It's Are these forms in any way a nod, you know, to that life experience or those life experiences in any way? If you could comment on that, I think that would be great.
yeah. Okay. Yes. I think I do have a few poems in the chapbook that are written in a form. Yeah, very experimental. And I think I do that two ways. One is I know the intensity of what I'm writing about. So most of the time when I write about those things, about trauma, about grief, about war, like the matter of daily bread and also broken constellation, I want to I want to know I want to like to have I want to bring my readers into the poem without the intensity of it, without giving them like handing them the trauma to go. I want them to settle in before approaching that trauma. So most of the times that is why I use poems in my writing. And also it does help me because I do like experimenting with a lot of forms. So whenever I'm doing it, it's like form, like it will be fun for me. But I know that I know what I'm writing about, but at the same time it will be fun for me. So yeah. And secondly, because in terms of maybe spacing and also using blank lines, mostly I do that because there are words that cannot be said. So I just leave it to the silence because I think there are a lot of languages and silence is one. So yeah, I do that. And that's why you find in poems like The Matter of Daily Bread does have that because it was a very tragic. It's a tragic poem. The event is tragic. It's still happening. Yeah, it's still happening. But that's why I have all the three. I experimented with spacings in the poem. Also experimented with blank lines in the poem because it was a lot, and but still I wanted to bring some kind of life into the poem so that it won't just be heavy. Yeah. I think you're mute.
Okay. So wonderful response, right? Wonderful response.
Okay, yeah,
I
sorry,
like
sorry, sorry, I didn't talk about, sorry, a broken constellation. Yeah, I
yeah,
just
yeah,
opened
yeah.
it. Yeah, for a broken constellation, the shape, I intended for it to be a star actually, but it was a lot of work and so I settled for that shape, which I hope it does look like a star. I think it should.
It is a
Yeah,
star. It is a
yeah,
star among these poems
yeah.
because it's
But
one of
that
my
one,
favorites.
okay, thank you. Yeah, even though it is a sad event. Um, but that one, the concept came as a result of when I read the news about what happened that the 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 military sent an airstrike to a village, a group of people celebrating the birth of the prophet, which is called Maulud here, that it was a mistake and they tagged it as a mistake. And this is not an event that just happened once, it has been happening over time. Even after this one, I think three or two happened. All they were tagged as mistake. And right after the first one was sent, just few minutes after that, another one was sent again, another mistake. And yeah, so I just raised my head and I was looking at the sky at that moment, and then the concept of the stars came in because I know mostly if something is coming from above, you have to look at it. So I was thinking maybe that was what the victims did. So I was just trying to bring in whatever I can get from how they expressed it, like experience, yeah, like from their experience, if I can, and to see that I write it down and I document it. So yes, mostly the forms. Sometimes the forms are fun. I just bring it in just for fun, but sometimes the story or the event does determine the type of form I use or how I do them or how I use them. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I would like to track back to something you mentioned earlier in your previous response about how sometimes you use blackouts to take out words
Mhm.
because they are words that don't need to be said, right? And now, as a poet of witness, I feel like is that not define or being in contrast to what you're supposed to be doing in amplifying
Okay.
these
Mhm.
experiences, right? You say, okay, you're doing the work of archiving, but then you're being selective of what you say, right? You're fighting censorship in the media as a poet of witness, but yet you're keeping some things out of the poems, right? So I want to know, like, is there like a moral compass that guides you to say, okay, this is what should go into the poem, this is what shouldn't go into the poem? And they're like ethical rules guiding, what you allow into the poem and what doesn't get into the poem.
Okay. I would like to correct something. Not
Okay.
something. I don't use blackout to like. Is it cover? Should I use cover? Yeah. What doesn't need to be said? Because I think I only use blackout here in the matter of deliberate, and it does have a full poem at the side before the blackout one. Um, there, I just wanted to say that even with the fewer words, that the fewer words will still say the same thing. Like they will still carry that same heaviness as that
Right.
of the whole poem. You know, doesn't matter how few the lines are, what matters is that it happened. And it won't change like the event happened. And even though I reduced the words, I used blackout, it still happened. I think if I can recall, it just how many like the matter there's I'm only a passerby, I'm only a passerby. I've thought of just making it just as I'm only a passerby because to me just that line carries everything about the poem. That I'm only a passerby. Yeah, because he was indeed just a passerby. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know when it comes to like the poetry of witness, I think what most people are usually concerned with, is things that have to do with political events or
Mhm.
traumatic events. Things are like, societal, they're not like personal, right? They're not personal. And it is one of the reasons why I love this chapbook because I feel like it is short and yet it covers a lot of ground. Like it has a very wide range and it approaches like so many things from like different angles. And why I say this because there's a poem in the collection that I think it was if I was writing like a poem or a collection with the thoughts in mind that I'm writing a poetry of witness, I may not have like, my first instinct wouldn't have been to, put that kind of poem in this collection, right? In this collection. But then seeing it sandwiched between, all this, what quote unquote are like more important poems, it makes me feel like you have achieved something, in terms of what defines what a poetry of witness is and what shouldn't be. The poem in question is the poem about that focuses on that or that gives a nod to gendered violence, where a woman comes home
Mhm.
to her parents, her mom, and instead of like going through the proper channels and do what's needed, see that the conflict is resolved, they seek alternative methods, probably what feeding her Astor's meals, and then I love the notes on which the poem ends on. I love the notes on which the poem ends on, accent the even the living, something tragic doesn't have to happen before you feel like people deserve honoring or they deserve flowers, right? So
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
last line in the poem says, "The living also deserve roses." right? Shout out
Mm-hmm.
to Carnival of Roses, right? Of Red Roses. But yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to hear, I would love to hear how you arrived at the decision to put this poem, and this collection. Because personally, I'm like very, very selective about like what goes into a poem or what poem goes into like a collection, especially because if I have like, okay, this is what I want to do with this collection, this is what I want to do with this chapbook, right? So I'm very, very selective.
Mm-hmm.
So to see this poem, approaching like poetry of witness from an angle that is not like exactly traditional, right? It is not so common. I'm like a bit taken back and surprised and impressed at the same time. So I want to know what did it mean to write this poem? One, what did it mean to write this poem?
Mm-hmm.
And not just write it, but to also decide that it deserves a page in this chapbook.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What it meant. The poem, as you said, is about gender violence. God, I hate the sound of that. But yes, it's about gender violence. And if I can I read the poem first before?
Yeah, yeah, that would be nice, so people can get like the context of what we talk about.
Yes. Okay. Everyone tends to care when you pass through the blade. The place I come from, there are words that makes it out of darkness after the eyes close their doors. Damunsani, the last time I heard them, Auntie H gathered her husband's punches in her heart. At the hospital, the doctor drew white sheet and said it was heart failure. We knew it was the oyster mills her mother fed her on every visit. God knows we added more to the ingredients. When she came home with patches like an abandoned sidewalk, her eyes threatening to spill a river, we gave her a handkerchief and passed a bowl of freshly made oyster meal because that is what we, women, do. I swear, we walked into her broken bones, built a fort of excuses, and kept going. Is this what you call love? Do you not see where the seeds of your selfish love sprouted her into her grave? Mother, hear me. When your daughter comes home, add softness to her meal. The living also deserve roses. So, the idea of this worm came, even though I had it has been in my mind for a long time because in the north we do have this tradition of telling our daughters, our sisters, um to just swallow everything in and just be patient. We love that word patience when it comes to a woman in a marriage. And so despite everything that's happening, we always say be patient. Yeah, be patient. And that word that Munsani translates to had I known, like that's definitely what does happen at the end of the time. Like, why didn't I listen to her? You know? And I I decided to include it in this chapbook because what I was going for, like the title stated on Uncensored Snapshot, is to write about or to make the chapbook include all those poems that talk about events that shouldn't be censored but they are being censored. This is something that is being censored. You'll be surprised that even with all that's happening, we don't talk about it. We hate to talk about it. We think it's a taboo to talk about it. So yeah, and I think, or definitely I know that it shouldn't be censored. This is something that we should have discussion about. It's something that we need to talk about it. We don't, even if we don't want to, we need to talk about it because it's happening and it's continuously happening. So yes, I decided to include it because in one way or the other, it's also censorship by not allowing the women to speak for themselves by giving them the patient's card and telling them to just oh my God, I just remember this statement. Mother saying we also pass through the same thing, like trying to belittle the experience or yeah of what the daughter is being passing. So yeah, it's censorship and it's something that discussion or conversation need to be it need to be talked on about. Uh, yeah, that was why I included the poem in this chapbook because all the poems in the chapbook are talking about um are voicing out voices that are being silenced, and silencing those voices is censorship. And I just want to have a place that those voices will be free to be whatever they want to be, to talk about their experience, to talk about their traumas, to experience, to express what they're feeling without being censored. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Um, I feel like I know this is like 5:41, so we're already 40 minutes into this, so we have like less than 5 minutes, Samira.
Ooh, oh God.
Can you believe that
Time
time
flies
flies?
when yes.
It does. It does. Oh my God.
But I feel like this conversation would be incomplete if we did not talk about the act of witnessing, that is being done by this collection. Um, a witnessing that, crosses borders, um, I mean, there's a lot happening, and we have in the collection there are poems where the speakers are and countryless, right? They have no allegiance to any country, and they just simply saying things, the way they observe them, which is basically what poetry of witness, does. That's the responsibility, of what should be the responsibility, of every poet. Should be able to carry yourself as a global witness, in the face of oppression and occupation and colonialism, neocolonialism, So there are poems that drew my attention, when I thought about how much ground is being covered in terms of land now, how much ground is being covered, by the collection. And one of this poem is Gaza with Home. And I love that poem because I think it does like a lot of things with not just the form. I love the form. Sadly, I've never written a ghazal before. I mean, maybe after reading this, I'll be inspired enough to write one
Mm,
someday.
yeah, that was my
Someday.
first gazelle. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never written a ghazal before, right? So I love what it does, where there's more than just one language, there's we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing, right? The scene. And then I am fascinated by what the idea of home, means in this particular poem, where we're seeing Arabic, right? The Arabic was littered all over the poem. And then there are nods towards traditional household cultures, household music, So I want to ask or ask that you comment for the next few minutes, um, what your idea of home was during the course of writing the poems in this collection, and also to comment on how you see yourself. Do you feel you are someone who's saddled with the responsibility to comment on issues that are happening outside of your home country, or as outside of where you consider your home country, right? I mean, the idea of home is always changing for me personally, but then I love what this poem does, with that. And then the entire collection, I think home in this collection is probably the most mentioned word, I think that's the most mentioned word in this collection. I don't know if anyone has noticed it, but if you haven't, it means you need to buy this chapbook. So do what you can to get your own copy, right? Do what you can to get your own copy. And with home being like the most mentioned word in this collection, I think it is important that you usher us into the word of what home means, to you both as a poet and as a person.
Okay.
Is she
Is that
here?
all?
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
Ye- Yes, I'm here. Okay. Um, so talk about the home and Gaza home. It's quite different, if to say, from the home in Gaza with home. I wasn't thinking of a specific location. I wasn't thinking of Nigeria, of northern Nigeria one bit when I was writing it, even though I brought in some Hausa music into the poem, the Choge's music, Barmani Choge. Yeah, so and I placed with her. And so when I was writing it, I was just thinking about all the injustice happening and how a lot of people are being forced to migrate, are being forced to abandon their home in search of another place to call home, you know. And at the end of the time, at the end, because most are just, as I told Samira, my poems are also mysterious to me. So whenever I write them at first two, one, two drafts, I don't really know exactly what I'm writing about. So it was after I finished writing it and I realized that this isn't talking about a specific place. And I love that about the poem because I think it was able to cover a lot of ground. It was able to make itself just versatile so that everyone who has been um forced to migrate one way or the other um would relate with the poem. So yeah, that's about the poem. And then for the other poems in the collection that does mention home or had the concept of or do have the concept of poem of home in the poems, I would say the collection um you know is about um yes, it's about injustice, but in a way it's also about the northern Nigeria preserving the peace and also the heritage of the region as it was before whatever before all the insecurity set in. So like the poem I read the first when I started this when we started this session, the How to Not House a Song, the poem about language. I wanted to show that the elasticity of language, how the tongue itself can endure a lot. I wanted to write a poem at that time on how I can preserve my tongue even though um even though I want to um go out of my country or maybe like out of the border, just like you said, I wanted to preserve my own tongue. And that is why I made it in the form of like a a speech where in the form of a speech where despite my attempt to see that I hold on to the Western presumption of how I should speak, it still decided to lose itself into the speech, which I love a lot. And it's something that practically it does happen. And I think it does happen to a lot of houses, not just Hausa, the Yorubas and also the Igbos. You get you, if or let me just say a lot of speakers who are not indigenous indigenous speakers. It does happen. Your tongue get to lose itself at any point at a time. So yeah. Do I need
That's
did I get everything?
that's yeah. I think you covered everything. That's
Yes, and you
awesome.
said
And I like
yeah.
go on, go on.
Okay, sorry. No, sorry. Yes, about writing across borders. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the matter of daily bread. Yes. I don't think there's need to segment anything because injustice doesn't have border. The same injustice you've been um the people here in the northern Nigeria have been passing through. It's the same thing that's happening. The people of Gaza have been passing through, losing their homes. They don't have peace of mind or anything. And also in other parts of the world, we have seen like in all over the world, it's like similar things. So it's all injustice, and all this thing is being fueled or encouraged by power. Yes. So I don't think there's need for us to say, okay, I need to write about this so place because this is where my home is or this is what affects me. So I don't think that should be a thing for writers, especially for poets, especially poets. I don't think that should be a thing for us. We should write about everything in general without segregating like where it happened or who it happened to. So yeah.
Yeah, wonderful response. I love what you said, about how writers shouldn't,
Oh,
be selective.
he's gone again.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
I think my signal is like very bad. So, but can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So
We can hear you
I
now.
love what you said about what you said about how writers shouldn't be selective about where they write about or what things they write about because it brings to mind about the universality of suffering, right? Um, if one part of your body, is injured, right? If one part of your body is injured or is in pain, the rest of your body, responds to that pain, right? So I like to view the world or see the world, in
Mhm.
that same sense, right? So if there's a suffering going on, outside of my
Mhm.
home country, there's a suffering going on with me, right? So it is my responsibility, I owe it to that place, wherever it may be, to do anything I can, to contribute to its healing, right? Um, I don't know. This is 5:53. Samira, how are we doing on time?
Well, we
Yeah.
have about 7 minutes left, so I don't know if you want to move on to any did you have a few other things that you
Oh
wanted to
my
get
God,
to
we
today? Yes.
Um,
definitely
maybe
question and answers.
yeah, yeah, at this junction, we just have to open
Yeah.
the floor to the audience.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, right, please, now is the time. And thank you so much to everyone who made it to this reading, this discussion. It means a lot to have you guys here. So if you do have any questions, please ask. Zaynab is here to respond to all of your questions as much as she can take. And while we are waiting for your questions, please remember to order your copy of this glorious chapbook. It is important, right? It's important to have this chapbook. Um, for many reasons, honestly, for many reasons. There are poems that speak to me like personally, and there are poems that I'm reading and I'm wishing, I wrote. I'm like, come on, how did I not write this poem?
Don't get started.
I mean, I look at finding my way home and I'm like, I ought to have written that poem. So we have a question from I think two questions. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, a question
from Iman.
from Imran. Imran is asking how you found your inspiration to write your poems.
Inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Iman, for that question. Oh, I don't think I do have one inspiration, like one way of finding inspiration for my poems. Yes, I also, as Samira said earlier, yes, my it's dynamic. I It does come in various forms. It can come maybe after reading some work or some beautiful poems that I can't just pass on without writing something. Sometimes it does come maybe after watching a movie, mostly historical movie or book adaptation movies. And yeah, also after watching some news, which this chapbook is heavily rooted in, or maybe from conversation with friends, with family, just along the way. Yeah. But basically this chapbook, the inspiration came after from all the phone calls my parents um received about the insecurity in my hometown in Bobi. Yeah.
Okay. We have a question from Kayode. He says, do you consider Quranic exegesis in your work? While reviewing Carnival of Red Roses, I couldn't believe what I discovered. And I am sure the exegesis of undertone will be in uncensored snapshots too. So is this something you consider? I don't know. Zaynab.
Okay. Yes. Um One, yes. I would say as a Muslim, I would like to see myself as a very spiritual person. So whenever I write, I make sure that yes, just like inspiration, drawing inspiration, I make sure that I bring in all myself into my writing. And yeah, and the Quranic verses or Quranic stories or Quranic or maybe stories, they do find their way into my poems whenever I write. Yeah.
Okay. I think we have 2 minutes left on the clock. So, and then I think there's a big question. Oh my goodness. Okay, someone is asking. Um, Abdul Basit is asking, in case there is a challenge of not telling the story of incidents well enough due to measuring what goes in and what doesn't, how do you fight it? I think he's asking about like balance. How do you balance what goes into your poem and what doesn't go? Beautiful question, by the way.
There are a lot of stories that I should have written in this collection. I know that. But I couldn't bring myself to write them. I am still trying to write them. I have them here, which is important. And I think with time I'm definitely going to write them. But I think it all depends on um my creative self, what she wants to really bring out and what she doesn't want to bring out. Because I know that we all we have to write these stories, but at the same time we have to make sure that we also care for ourselves. Yeah, yes. So that's something that I try to balance in between because as I told my Samira, I the reason I wrote um like 10 of the poems in this chapbook at once was because I just wanted to write them and just move on. Yeah, it took a lot of time for me to edit them. It took a lot for me. And there's a certain poem in this chapbook that I don't like reading. I don't like reading. But yes, it's something that has to be written. And it all depends on your emotional health. If it's important to make sure that you balance it. You write about what you can endure, and then the other just take your time. It's bit by bit. Yeah.
Okay, more questions, beautiful questions have poured in. I
Ooh,
hope we
it's
have,
time.
yeah, oh my goodness. This is so sad.
I know. Why don't we go ahead
Yes.
and read those 2 questions so we can just at least all contemplate them?
All right. So
Okay.
Emmanuel is asking, I have a question about writing across borders and bearing witness. How do we get into the actual grief of these people since we're external bodies expected to feel their pain? And Michael Akuchi is asking, most of your poems are highly experimental and embracing unconventional forms. I love that, by the way. What's your number one tip for writing experimental poems? Ibrahim says, Hi Z, what emotional journey do you hope readers experience in this collection? What do you hope they find at the end? And is there any transformation you aim for them to undergo? Ah, this is a very beautiful question,
These
Zainab.
are beautiful. Do you think you can give a little bit back as we close up, Zainab, to these 3 multidimensional questions?
Okay, so yeah, let me first. I have a question about writing across borders and environment. Like, how do you go into actual grief with those people since nobody expected to feel that way? Yes, we are excellent bodies, and that is why I bring in the form of a second witness. Most of the poems there, I read them as a second witness. I want to be a shadow, but but the most important thing is to make sure that the stories are being told. So it's by I do that by being either a shadow or a second witness. And then the second one, yeah, embracing conventional form. I love that. Oh, I love that too because oh my God, I find traditional form boring. And then what number of tip is for your writing experimental poem? Ooh, I'll just say just be fun. Like just do whatever you have to do. Like experiment. Like it doesn't you're not following any rules there. So you don't have anything to break. Just have fun. And the last one, emotional journey. Do you hope readers experience in this collection? I want the readers to experience um the the emotions of these witnesses, and also I want them at the end to feel their pain, but at the same time not to dwell in it. And what transformational changes do you aim for them to undergo? I would want them to undergo the conception of one-sided story. So just and also importantly censorship, to know that most of the news that we listen to or we see or we read are being censored. There are always a second story out there, something that isn't being said, and or is or the media or the government per se are trying very hard to cover that. So yes, we should try as much as possible to see that we search on our own, be intentional about that search too. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Abubakar, did you want to say something as we close up?
No, nothing really. Just congratulations to Zainab, and we're looking forward to whatever it is that you have for us next. Hopefully, a full length. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both.
Oh,
This
okay.
was candid, and I have a page, 3 or 4 pages of notes just based on what you all were saying. We should have
Yeah.
this hopefully snipped up, and the recording will be posted on YouTube at some point, and we'll let you guys know when. So you'll see it on our channel, so you'll be able to share accordingly. Thank you so much, Zainab. Thank you so much, Abu Bakr. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And this was excellent. Congratulations again, Zainab, and thank you for your great work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Samira, and thank you everyone for
You're welcome.
joining. I really do appreciate. Abakan. Nagodi.
All
All
right,
right.
everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Samira. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
See you, Zainab. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. Mhm.